So, business for me started as a one-man band, and what I started doing at the time was selling used gym equipment, and I would go from mom and pop gym in my area, from place to place, and just kind of knock up there and kind of see what was going on and see if they needed any used equipment. After getting a bunch of doors basically shut in my face, no one was really looking to buy. Um, I don't know, like maybe 20, 30 doors, maybe more. Someone finally asked me a question. They were like, hey, look, listen, I'm really not interested in buying any kind of equipment, but I have some equipment here that really needs to be fixed. Would you mind taking a look at it, see if you could fix it? Now, at the time, I was so like just desperate to be able to do business with somebody that I agreed to do something that I really didn't know. But I went up there, I checked out the equipment, I figured I could fix it. I think I made 150 bucks fixing a couple of treadmills for this guy, and he seemed to be happy. And it kind of developed a relationship between me and that gym owner. Now, that being said, a light bulb went off in my head, and the light bulb was, hey, why don't you go and offer service instead of the actual product you're trying to sell? And that way, most people that need service, they'll use you, and if something ever comes up when they need to replace it, they could give you a call, or at least you're in their queue to be able to be called. Doesn't guarantee anything, but I would say at the minimum you would have the opportunity to. So I started kind of like, now I changed the name of my business, and I started just kind of asking like, hey, I do fit equipment service. Is there anything I can do for your gym? And that kind of led to just kind of building up on what I was already doing. Now, what I will say looking back at that situation was that going into it initially, I didn't have what was called a ground game. I understood that I needed to be able to knock on doors, and I was bold enough to be able to go knock on doors and ask people like, hey, are you interested in some equipment? But the people that I was knocking on doors for, these are, mom and pop gyms that are barely making it at the time. And I'm here trying to sell them something. Instead of saying, hey, why don't I help you kind of just maintain what you have? It's a much easier in that I would have with the customer. And down the line, as time passes, I'll have the opportunity to be able to pitch them a product if that the time came to be, as long as I did a good job servicing the product. Now, that word ground game was something that I didn't understand for years. If you're building a business and if you're just starting in your one-man band, you have to have kind of something like that you could offer customers that is at a super low point, and it's super helpful for them to say yes at that level. Well, they at least trust you to be able to, do something for them, provide them with a service or goods. Now, my objective was always to sell them goods. I did not have the slightest idea as to what service took, and I had to basically learn on the fly. And I, burned myself a few times losing money on service, and I learned a lot. Now, that being the case, what is your ground game is the question. So do you even have a ground game? Do you understand what that means? So if I were you, I would start looking into, maybe as going out and becoming an entrepreneur on your own, is figuring out something small that leads to something big, kind of like just something to get you in the door versus just going in with the ask right at the very beginning. It is much easier to get somebody to agree if you're just looking to help versus if you're just looking to sell. If you're looking to sell, they're going to price you out. There's a lot going on there. If you're looking to help them out, it's like, run-of-the-mill stuff. Like, hey, I can provide you with the services free, or it's, little or no money. It's always way better and better received by the customer, especially when you're trying to build a brand new base of customers. If I started from zero with zero customers. So to me, it was something I had to kind of learn as time went on that I needed. So when I talk about ground game, my biggest struggle was just getting people to just say yes to anything, So having that service underneath my belt after a year or 2 years down the line really helped me kind of like speed up what I was doing on my own. So the struggle was real at the beginning. I mean, I was working a full-time job, and this was something I was doing part-time, so it wasn't like my main source of income, but I wanted it to be, and I knew that there was a future there for me. I was driving a truck and doing deliveries at the time, and it just wasn't really, even though it paid the bills, it was not what I see myself doing all my life. I always told my father I'd never be a truck driver. Here I am driving a truck only a few years later. And so when you're struggling and you find yourself in that situation where you just don't seem to be able to break through the market you're trying to get into, maybe start trying to figure out the little things you can start providing in your market, whatever that is. So like, for example, like right now I'm struggling with my videography. So I have like a videography company that I've been trying to start. Long story short, I've always wanted to make movies, and I've always loved cinema. I've always loved everything about what I would see on TV. And after COVID, I found that it would be a cool idea to maybe get into videography. And now it's weird because I have experience, I have learned a lot of skills, but I'm still having a real hard time of having any kind of ground game for people. So I've been trying to figure it out, because it's a whole different mindset from what I do, where I provide goods right now, to providing a service. So now I'm literally like giving away free videos, doing promos, doing cuts, like all this stuff for free or for no money. Like I've been doing some weddings for little or no money. And I mean, not that I want to do weddings, to be honest with you. I just thought maybe it'd be a good idea to be able to sustain some of my funds for buying equipment and stuff. So, I don't want to drain my personal pockets to, build up on something that is just kind of like a hobby right now. But yeah, so like right now I'm literally going through that same struggle. And, I built the website. I've done everything that I thought that I needed in order to be able to get the jobs, so I'm still not getting them. So I'll figure that out down the line. It's just something that I have to really put my mind to. I do run a business full time, so it's kind of tough to just focus on that one thing. But that being said, it's been a real struggle. And it just reminds me, when I first started doing what I do now, the real struggle that I was going through then. So, don't let it get you down. At the end of the day, it's just trying to figure out that one little thing that could get you in the door, or I could at least get the snowball rolling on what you're actually doing. So the biggest lesson I learned from this situation, or from, starting up in business, one of the biggest lessons I learned actually were to know my market. I did not understand who I was coming in to try to sell the product to. I thought everybody had money in gyms, and I thought everybody could use a treadmill. That's not the way it works. I was going into people that were really struggling. Mom and pops were getting hammered at the time when I first started up in this, and they were basically being taken out by the Planet Fitnesses, the Retros, the LA Fitnesses. All these big box gyms are just wiping them out, and I wasn't providing any value for them by offering them product that they couldn't afford. So it took me a little bit to start realizing that the market that I was actually aiming for, I didn't even understand it. So that's another thing you have to kind of keep in mind when you're building a ground game. You have to really understand the market you're actually working with. If you're trying to sell Lamborghinis to somebody who doesn't have the money, you're never going to sell a Lamborghini. So it's kind of the same thing. Like you can't aim, you can't have the wrong aim. You have to really try to hone in on who you're really trying to sell to, in order to be able to market what you're offering, but also find that little in where it's what I consider like some sort of ground game that you have with the customer or your customer base that will kind of build up on your business. So just remember, know your market and have a ground game. So that's my tips for today. I hope this helps somebody. And if you keep tuning in, who knows, I'll keep making these videos and hopefully help somebody.